Let's get back to some other news we're following, including that gripping testimony today from the young woman who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin only moments before he was killed by George Zimmerman. Rachel Jeantel has struggled through a second day of very tough cross-examination. The trial is in recess right now. They're taking a little lunch break. It will resume fairly soon, though. Jeantel will be back on the stand to finish her testifying. She's been testifying now for hours. We're joined now by two CNN legal analysts who are following this trial very closely. Mark NeJame is in Orlando. Danny Savalas is in Philadelphia. Mark, first to you. This young woman's testimony, as I say, has been going on for hours, over 2 days. What stands out the most to you about her testimony?
To me, it's disjointed and it's simply not credible. If this is the cornerstone of the state's case, I think they've got troubles. If they consider this to be a good witness, then we've surely lowered our standards as to what a witness should be about. She's given multiple inconsistent statements. She's been hard to follow. And to me, she does not come across as credible, and I think the state has to change up its game plan a little bit if they're really serious about a conviction here.
Danny, as you know, the defense, their job is to try to discredit this 19-year-old woman. What do you think, they've done a good job or a bad job?
I think they've done a very good job for a couple reasons. It's not so much discredit, but they have to challenge her credibility, either her ability to perceive what she saw. In other words, she may be telling the truth, but she didn't see it the way she couldn't perceive it. And actually, she's an ear witness. She didn't see anything. Or that she has a motive, or she's not reliable otherwise. She's just not believable, and I think the defense has done a good job. They've confronted her with some prior inconsistent statements. Those are not the end-of-the-world type inconsistent statements, but they tend to show that she doesn't have a terrific memory at best. I think the defense has done a very good job. They've stuck to the textbook, and they've cross-examined her very well without getting too passionate and being very, at least, professional in doing so, I believe.
The defense attorney, Don West, has pointed out what he described as several lies that this young Rachel Jeantel has told. At one point, she was forced to admit on the stand that she couldn't read a letter that was sent to Trayvon Martin's mother. Let's watch this.
Are you able to read that copy well enough that you can tell us if it's, in fact, the same letter?
No.
Are you unable to read that at all?
Some of them I do not.
Can you read any of the words on it?
I don't understand cursive. I don't read cursive.
She says she doesn't read cursive. That was an embarrassing, a humiliating moment, I must say, for that 19-year-old. What did you make of that moment? Was it an effective moment, Mark?
I think it was an effective moment. It does cause you to be a bit sympathetic with her, simply because she might not possess the intellectual capability that we would otherwise hope. But, you know, it doesn't forgive misrepresentations under oath. You know, on my Facebook or on Twitter, a few people come up and they go, you know, give her a break, she's young. Look, she's 19 and a half years old. She's going to be 20 years old come January 1st, if I remember her birthday. You know, she has the same obligation under the law as we all do. The law does not say, well, if you're 19 or even if you're 16, you have the right to misrepresent while under oath. We have a court system. We have a tragedy. A young man, a young teenager is dead, and we have another man fighting for his life. She doesn't get any passes. She should have been truthful from the beginning, and this is what she's now facing because of the misrepresentations that have happened in the past. This is just the way it goes.
You know, Danny, Sunny Hostin, our legal analyst, was inside the courtroom today, and she seemed to be suggesting that Rachel seemed to be more sympathetic to those 6 jurors today than maybe even yesterday. They were beginning to identify with her. That was the impression she was getting from being inside the courtroom. Is it fair from your experience, Danny, that sometimes you get a different impression watching something on TV than when you're actually inside the courtroom?
Absolutely, and that's why Sunny being there in the courtroom and able to evaluate at least what the jurors' expressions are, because you really never know what a juror is thinking until a case is over. But it plays much differently in a courtroom than it might on TV. And even whether it be humor or whatever goes on in the courtroom, people see it differently when they're in there. It's a different room. It's a different vibe. In this case, though, I think whether watching on TV or in the courtroom, you've got a witness that I don't know that this jury is going to be able to identify with. They're not going to maybe they don't understand someone who can't read cursive or who has told many inconsistent stories. Whether intentional or accidental, or they may ultimately conclude she just doesn't have the capacity to perceive things or hear things the way she remembers.
Let's listen to another exchange. This one about a transcript taken from Rachel Jeantel. Listen to this.
According to this transcript that you just saw, when Mr. Delarianda said, "Could you tell who was saying that?" you said, I couldn't hear Trayvon.
I could hear it. Read the next page, sir.
Could you tell who was saying that? I could have heard Trayvon.
I could hear Trayvon.
Could have is what this says.
Trust me, they messed up.
All right, Mark, this is critical potentially to the case. She says, trust me, they messed up, meaning she was misquoted in that earlier transcript. Are jurors likely to believe that?
Oh, look, could have does not establish this case beyond a reasonable doubt or her testimony beyond a reasonable doubt. Could have is ambiguous. Could have is maybe yes and maybe no. It's beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. And a could have doesn't cut it. You know, this is, I think, during the same exchange, it comes up a bit later, she also said that she could hear wet grass. I just can't imagine that the jurors are going to find her to be credible and that this will be the cornerstone of this case. I think the state is going to have to change up their strategy, and if they're seeking that prosecution, they're going to have to go towards other areas. Her credibility to me simply just does not exist, based on this and many other instances with her testimony so far.
Yeah, she later explained on that wet grass thing, she meant that she heard activity on that wet grass. She was not just simply suggesting she could hear wet grass. All right, there's going to be more testimony coming up from her. We'll have live coverage of that momentarily, so stand by. Mark, Danny, guys, thanks very much. I know you're going to be back with us as well. Also, how Zimmerman went from a fit, trim guy to being way, way overweight. Could this transformation, though, help his case?